Chapter 2: The Goblins. In a place within the central Colombian mountain range, or just off of it, there was an abandoned cattle ranch. One night, two workers entered it, accompanied by 4 large dogs. As the hours of night approached, one of the men went out to fetch water. Upon leaving the house, he began to scream. Hearing this, his companion told him not to do so, warning that it was dangerous, since in that same mountain lived the being known as Patasola, who could respond to the noise and come toward them. The man paid no attention and continued toward the water, screaming all the while. When he had filled the container and was already returning to the house, he stopped once more and began to scream again. This time an answer came from the high parts of the mountain range. His companion again begged him to stop screaming, explaining that he had already seen that result, since Patasola had answered from the heights. The man still paid no attention, continued screaming, and Patasola continued responding, drawing nearer and nearer to where they were. Seeing that Patasola was approaching, the two men took refuge inside the house and tightly closed the doors. Shortly after, Patasola arrived at the house, and the 4 mastiffs that accompanied the men had to face a true battle with this being. The men were shut inside and could do nothing but suffer, and there is no doubt that their only defense were the dogs. After long hours of fighting, the dogs finally put Patasola to flight, and as it retreated, it continued emitting a similar cry. When the men realized that the being had gone away, they left the house and departed quickly, never to return. Could you give me an explanation of this story, Master? Ordinary people live here in the 3-dimensional world, ignoring the existence of a 4th coordinate of a 4th dimension. It is necessary to know that beyond our 3-dimensional world lies the unknown dimension, the etheric region. If we carefully observe the color of distant mountains, we can perceive an intense and beautiful blue. It is obvious that this color is the ether of the 4th dimension. We have been told that in a remote future, the whole ether will be visible in full form within the very air that we breathe. Modern scientists emphatically deny the ether and that, or rather say that it exists only in magnetic fields. The people of the Middle Ages denied the roundness of the Earth, supposing it to be flat. When Galileo affirmed that the Earth was round and that it was not immobile, he was about to be condemned to death. When he was required to swear, with his hands upon the Holy Bible, that the Earth was not round and did not move, he said, "I swear it, but it moves, it moves." Thus, although we deny the existence of the ether, although we swear that it does not exist, we will have to say, parodying Galileo, but it exists. It exists. In that etheric region, in that 4th coordinate, live the elemental creatures of nature. And this is something we must understand deeply. These beings called elementals. They're called this precisely because they live within the elements. You know, my dear friend, that fire is inhabited by elemental creatures. You also understand that the air is densely populated by that same class of beings, and that water and earth are likewise inhabited by these elementals. The creatures of fire have been known since ancient times as salamanders. The elementals of the air are designed by the name sylphs, or designated as sylphs. The beings of the water are called undines, nereids, sirens, and so on. The creatures that live among the rocks of the earth have been named pygmies, gnomes, and the like. It is clear that the forms of these creatures vary greatly. The creatures of fire are thin and dry, very similar to crickets, although much larger in size. The creatures of the air appear as small, very beautiful children with rosy faces like dawn. The elementals of the water take diverse forms. Some appear as ineffable ladies, joyful among the waves of the immense sea. Others have the form of siren fish, with the head of a woman, so mermaids. And finally, there are undines that play among the clouds or live in lakes and rivers that flow through rocky channels. The gnomes of the earth, the pygmies, appear as old men with long white beards and a ceremonious demeanor. They usually live in the mines of the earth or guard treasures hidden within it. All these elementals of nature are useful in the great creation. Some stimulate the fire, others propel the air, forming the winds, still others animate the waters, and others work in the alchemy of the metals within the bowels of the earth. Many other creatures exist that populate forests, deserts, and mountains. You distinguished gentlemen have spoken to us of the Patasola, a very particular elemental of the mountainous regions of your country. It is evident that there exists a whole series of elemental creatures endowed with great force and power. The event you have narrated clearly indicates that this type of elemental possesses sufficient power to make its presence felt in the three-dimensional world, in the physical world. In the story mentioned, it is unquestionable that there was a fight between the dogs and the unknown being. I can emphatically assure you that had it not been for the dogs, the two men would certainly have died. Really, in the deep bosom of nature, in the most distant places, in the mystery of the forests, there exist goblins, fairies, and creatures that people of the cities do not even remotely suspect. Not long ago, news of a strange death spread throughout the world. A certain Antarctic explorer was found with his throat cut beneath his tent on the continent of the South Pole. The most interesting aspect of this event lay in the words found in the logbook of his expedition. There one could read sentences such as the following: "It is already coming. I can already see the monster approaching. It is here, oh my God." What kind of monster could it have been? Some guardian of the fourth dimension, that is obvious. Oh, that last part was Samael. So he's saying, what kind of monster could it have been? Some guardian of the fourth dimension. By developing clairvoyance, we can verify the reality of the fourth dimension and of the elemental creatures that live within it. By the way of goblins, Master, I wish to relate to you an event that occurred 20 years ago in a town called Genova, Caldas, Colombia. One morning, a girl was sent by her parents to a store, and on her way back home, she encountered a woman who bore a certain resemblance to her mother and who invited the girl to follow her. And the girl did so, leaving the town. And when night fell and the parents realized that the girl had not returned, they informed the authorities of her disappearance. Hours later, a group was organized to search for her. They went to a place where someone had reported seeing her pass by, and as they approached the central mountain range, a person informed them that somewhere nearby the girl had passed by, and that when asked where she was going, she replied that she was going somewhere with her mother. They continued to search along the mountain range, and after 3 days they found the girl seated, half naked, upon an old tree trunk, unable to speak. When they brought her back to town, she recovered her speech and explained that she had been led to that place by a person identical to her mother, who later abandoned her there. Do you wish to explain to me the cause of this, and whether it was indeed a goblin, as the people of that place assured us? With the greatest pleasure, I will answer your question. Obviously, the girl was abducted by a goblin that assumed the same form as her mother. Skeptical people of the cities do not believe in these things, but the simple people of the forests give living testimony to the reality of goblins, which at bottom are nothing more than simple elementals of nature, inhabitants of the fourth dimension, of the fourth coordinate, of the fourth vertical. We Gnostics possess scientific means and procedures by which we can enter that fourth dimension at will, consciously and positively. In this way, we can meet such creatures of nature and converse with them. Would you explain to me in what way is it possible to penetrate with body and flesh into the fourth dimension? I guess this is a student asking this. I would like to see those goblins, those elementals. And if you have the procedure, please teach it to us. The master continues, "But my friend, you were asking me of something sensational. I want you to know that we Gnostics do not cultivate selfishness. I have the key and the procedures, and with the greatest pleasure I am going to teach one of them to you. Above all, you must know that nature is not something unconscious, as many suppose. Nature is truly Mother Nature. She possesses formidable psychic powers that we can use in order to penetrate voluntarily, consciously, and positively into the fourth dimension. You should lie down on the side of your heart, so left side, with your head resting upon the palm of your left hand, and concentrate intensely on the Mother Nature. Beg her, implore her, beseech her with words that come from the heart, with simple phrases, asking that she transport you, that she take you through the fourth dimension to any forest or any nearby place. When you begin to feel your legs and arms in a state of lassitude, when you begin to doze and feel drowsy, then, filled with intense faith, rise from your bed, saying, 'Mother of mine, in the name of Christ, I ask you to take me with my body to such and such place.' You must state clearly the place to which you wish to go. I advise you, my good friend, that before going out into the street, you first give a small jump, with the intention of floating in the surrounding atmosphere, in order to verify whether you are truly in the fourth dimension. It is evident that if you do not float, if you are unable to remain suspended in the atmosphere, it is because you have not yet penetrated the world of the fourth dimension. In that case, return to bed and repeat the experiment. Some people succeed immediately, others require months or even entire years in this apprenticeship. It is urgent to know that every human being has their own particular divine mother, that intelligent principle that created their physical body, that united zoosperm and ovum for fecundation, that gave form to each organic cell. Our particular divine mother can help us, provided that we conduct ourselves in an upright manner. Work with this technique, and when you achieve success, you will live consciously in the world of the fourth dimension, among all the elemental creatures of nature. Now I'm going to add here that he just explained how to astral project into the astral plane, which is, in general, the fifth dimension, the dream world, and we're constantly interacting more or less in the fifth dimension here. So it seems to me that when you're in the fifth dimension in the dream world, you're already more or less part of the fourth dimension as well. And you can, it makes sense to me that as soon as you're in a dream, you can start talking to elementals in the fourth dimension, even though you're in the fifth dimension, more or less. And also, he's explained in other books that the fourth dimension, when you're really in the fourth dimension, it has this intense electric blue. And he describes the same thing for the causal world too. So that's how you know completely 100% you're definitely deep in the fourth dimension. But it doesn't always look like that. In a dense forest of the department of Huila in the Republic of Colombia. Oh, actually, I'm going to finish off what I was explaining by adding that since he's explaining astral projection, which is technically lucid dreaming because you're lucid, your consciousness is lucid, aware in the dream world. So you don't have to project necessarily. If you find because it's very difficult to do this, and it's much easier to just find yourself aware and awake in a dream at some point, becoming aware and becoming lucid or cognizant. That also works too. If you find yourself in the astral plane, in that moment, you can start doing work like this. In the dense forest of the department of Huila in the Republic of Colombia, it once happened that a farm worker, while between the state of wakefulness and sleep, heard noises near his house during the hours of the night, and heard a voice that said, "Light the candle, light the candle, light the candle." The man paid no attention, but when he was about to fall asleep, he heard the same words repeated once more, 3 times. In view of this, he arose and lit the candle, seating himself beside it. When the night had already advanced, the man fell asleep again and once more heard the same voice repeating, "Light the candle, light the candle, light the candle." He awoke and saw that the candle was going out. Oh, I guess, actually, let's see here. What happened? Oh, so he sat beside it and then fell asleep, I guess. Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, okay, it says that here. He awoke and saw that the candle was still going out, or starting to go out, so he rekindled it again with firewood, and while doing so, he suddenly remembered a dream he had 7 years ago, when he was living in another region. In that dream, he saw himself alone in a forest where a wild animal attacked him. Could you explain to me who gave those orders, and what the dream from 7 years earlier had to do with what was happening at that moment? That's very interesting. That's obviously his divine mother or his innermost assuring him that. I'm also curious why he had to light the candle like that. It must be something to do with sparking clarity in the consciousness, wakefulness. So, Master says, "Distinguished gentlemen, I am pleased to answer your question. Your story is indeed interesting. The man involved in this experience had dreamed 7 years before the event, and it is clear that this dream was completely fulfilled. There is no doubt that his dream was prophetic, and that it later became reality. Undoubtedly, discarnate people, that is, the souls of deceased individuals who in other times had lived in those forests as shepherds of swine, assisted the man." Well, yeah, it could definitely be that. It could be people from the forest. Ghosts, personalities, beings of those people. They perceived the danger that threatened him. There is no doubt that in such forests there are ferocious beasts. Tigers, panthers, wild animals of all kinds. The deceased warned him of the necessity of keeping the fire lit in order to avoid danger and defend himself against nocturnal attacks, possibly from tigers in particular. Do you see how we have invisible friends who watch over us and help us? Okay, that's interesting. 2 years ago, during a gathering in which unusual cases were discussed, one of the attendees, who worked in a company dealing with electrical equipment, told us that in Scotland there are many goblins. He was especially perplexed by the following case. A close friend of his had told him that he had become friends with a goblin, and that they conversed for long hours. He further explained that the goblin enjoyed eating certain sweet and sour cherries that grew in very remote places of the forest. Since no one believed him, he decided to make a physical demonstration. He proposed that the goblin take him to the place where the cherries grew. But since they could not walk together, he asked the goblin to enter a cloth bag so that he could carry it. Once the goblin was inside the bag, the Scotsman ran to the side of his house ran to the house of his friend, shouting in order to prove that he was indeed friends with the goblin and that it was inside the bag. Great, however, was their surprise when they opened it and found it empty. Ashamed and embarrassed, he left the house and walked toward the place where the sweet and sour cherries, so loved by the goblin, were found. On the way, he realized that something was moving inside the cloth bag and that he still carried in his hand. Upon arriving at that place where the cherries grew, a rabbit jumped out of the bag and began to devour the cherries. Shortly thereafter, it transformed into the goblin. Seeing this, the Scotsman reproached him, saying, "Why did you play such a dirty trick on me? Do you not see that I have been ridiculed by my friends because of your action?" The goblin replied that he did not consent to that kind of demonstration, and that if the man wished to continue being his friend, he must promise never again to use him in order to convince others of their friendship. Is it possible that goblins can disappear and reappear, changing their form? Master, with the greatest pleasure I will answer your question. It is said that such goblins can assume very handsome masculine forms, with blonde hair and rosy complexions. Some affirm that they fall in love with young women of the forests, and that they are accustomed to serenading them with delightful music. Ancient traditions state that only competitions between orchestras, resounding with exquisite melodies, could drive them away. The story is very interesting. You can see how a person might become friends with a goblin. Unfortunately, this individual made the mistake of attempting to use his invisible friend for demonstrations. It is evident that goblins are enemies of exhibitionism. When they offer their friendship, they do so sincerely. However, people often possess an exhibitionist tendency, and this is very serious. It should not surprise you that the creature took the form of a rabbit, nor that it should not surprise you, and nor that it devoured the cherries. These beings consume different substances, principles, and fruits of nature. They are creatures that exist, that have life. They normally live in the fourth dimension, but in certain solitary places of the forests, they can make themselves visible and tangible to the flesh to ordinary people. Oh yeah, see, this is the thing I wanted to figure out here, because it seems to me that people are like schizophrenic and seeing these things. I don't know how malleable they are to be able to shift back and forth through dimensions, but they can appear like this whenever they do so desire. The vain people of the world no longer accept these realities because they are too deeply immersed in barbarism. They have generated, or rather degenerated, their psychic senses and become excessively materialistic. We Gnostics think in a different way. We possess exercises and systems to develop our psychic powers. And through certain procedures, we can allow ourselves the privilege of coming into contact not only with goblins, but also with the devas and elementals of this great creation.